Good evening and welcome to the Week 16 edition of the Holiday Sunday Sideline Report here on the Sports Insanity Network. I am Mark Oldovsky Halpern, and I'm being joined by two very special people. Special number one, Bill Corpus Crispy Murphy. How are you tonight?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am on vacation and I went 45 minutes away. So I am okay. And special number two, the tied for third in command here at the SIN network, Mike, the one and only pun master Rifkin. Mike, good evening.
Doing all right, man. How are you? Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you.
And to all our listeners, viewers, whatever you are.
And, we got a very busy weekend, a lot of football to cover, and this is going to be one of our last shows before the end of the year. So we're going to get you started out right here for the weekend. We got a good show ready to cover games, and we're going to kick it over to the pun master himself. Mike, take us into it.
All right. So as Mark mentioned, we're into week 16, which means the playoffs are right around the corner. So here are your week 16 playoff clinching scenarios. First in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles clinch the NFC East division title with a win or a tie, to Mark's chagrin.
And mine.
The Eagles also clinch a first-round bye and home field advantage with a win or a Vikings loss or tie.
Interesting.
The Giants clinch a playoff berth with one of the following solutions. They have to beat the Vikings. We'll talk about that. Plus, two of these three teams have to lose. The Commanders, the Lions, and the Seattle Seahawks. So if the Giants win and the Commanders, Lions, Seahawks, two of those teams lose, the Giants are in the playoffs for the first time in 7 years, I think it is.
Yes. Last time they made it was 2016.
It wasn't far off. On to the AFC. The Buffalo Bills clinched the AFC division title with a win or a Dolphins loss. The Cincinnati Bengals have clinched a playoff berth by virtue of the New York Jets loss Thursday night. We will dive into that in a moment. The Baltimore Ravens clinch a playoff berth with a win, and then two losses, actually, either a Patriot loss or a Dolphins loss because the Jets have lost already.
Right.
So if Baltimore wins and the Dolphins or Patriots lose, Baltimore's in the playoffs. And the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego get into the playoffs with a win. And then the Raiders and Patriots or Dolphins have to lose. So
interesting.
Chargers win, Raiders, and then Patriots or Dolphins have to lose. Those are your clinching scenarios for week 16.
One shout out here to Justin Herbert. Congratulations on being the first NFL baller in his first 3 seasons at 4,000 plus yards in the air.
Also, shout out to Justin Herbert for still looking like a pro surfer.
Yes. However, Sunshine Lawrence is definitely giving him a good run for his money.
Listen, Trevor Lawrence is Ronnie Sunshine Bass, and that's a good transition into Thursday night, which saw Ronnie Sunshine Bass and the Jacksonville Jaguars go into MetLife Stadium and I don't want to say destroy because that's not good, but they beat the Jets 19-3. Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 31, 229 yards. He also had a rushing touchdown. Evan Ingram in his return to MetLife, Giant legend, 7 catches and 113 yards. For the Jets, Zach Wilson, 9 of 18, 92 yards, and an interception. Outside of that, there's not much to say here about the Jets, but let's just dive into this as a whole. We could start on Jacksonville because I think we can spend a lot of time on the Jets.
Mhm.
But Mark, from the Jags, and in particular, the changes from Trevor Lawrence year 1 to year 2, what have you seen?
Well, Trevor Lawrence was great in college, and last year he was really not coached well. He was not given the support he needed. And with just a change of a head coach, look at the production that Trevor Lawrence has put up over the last 5 weeks, just at that period. I'm not saying that was a great starting off point, but the last 5 weeks, he's been playing lights out football, you know, coming back with Dallas, controlling this game against the Jets. Now that doesn't really sound by much, but the Jets do have a good defense. So, but it's only so long that you can hold a team from scoring. I mean, let's be realistic. But Trevor Lawrence is starting to show why he was the number 1 overall draft pick. He's starting to get more guys involved, as Mike said, and to Bill's disappointment, Evan Ingram. I always liked him with the Giants, but I think he and Trevor Lawrence are starting now to get on that right page. And we could be seeing the birth of, I dare to say it, the next Tony Gonzalez right here, but thinner. But T-Law has just overall impressed by passing around some of the top pass defenses in football and keeping his team in the game.
Bill?
Well, I do agree with Mark said, and and this is something I've been saying for a while about Trevor Lawrence. Last year, he didn't have the best rookie year, and a lot of people call him overrated, and I've been saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it till the cows come home. Trevor Lawrence wasn't terrible last year. He just did not have a good head coach. He just didn't have a good head coach, and the whole thing with Urban Meyer and that whole debacle. But now he's got a coach in Doug Peterson, who, and I've been saying this from the beginning, why I loved this hire with Doug Peterson, someone who is going to mold Trevor Lawrence into an NFL quarterback. And we have been seeing that so far. And I think so far it is gone absolutely great.
I agree the Doug Peterson thing makes a huge difference for any quarterback, especially when your other head coach winds up being grinding at the club. I mean, no disrespect to Urban Meyer's game, but
And that was and listen, we could go on all night long. Lionel Richie, don't sue me.
Terrible, just terrible job.
We could go on forever about all the mistakes Urban Meyer made with Trevor Lawrence, but we will literally be here till next Christmas.
But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just Urban Meyer, but Travis Etienne, who had 83 yards. I think he hit 1,000 for the season in the win. Him being healthy has been huge for this offense because now they have the ability to run the ball. Etienne's also a big part in the passing game. And then they said, you know what? We believe in Trevor Lawrence so much. We're going to bring in a Christian Kirk. We're going to bring in Zay Jones. Bring in Evan Ingram on a 1-year, $9 million contract. Guess what Evan Ingram's done now? He's put himself back out on the market next year to the point where he's going to get a nice payday. Or he could stay in Jacksonville and be the tight end of the Jags. Because this is a young team. They're up and coming. And I'm going to flat out say before we even get into the Titans later, they are more worthy of a playoff spot than the Tennessee Titans are. And I'm going to say this also because I think this is one thing I think we've overlooked. Everyone looks to the coaches who took over bad teams for coach of the year and how many wins they get. I got to tell you, if the Jags make the playoffs, how is Doug Peterson not a slam dunk here for coach of the year?
You have to give him that credit. I mean, there are a few other coaches that I'll tell you, who will be in the running, but with the huge turnaround, I would say in Jacksonville and Detroit, I say you're pretty close. Those are your 2 1-and-1s right there.
Yeah, those two are right there. So the Jags win, they move to 7-8, as do the Jets with the loss. Now, I'm going to go from this point. The opening series of the game, the Jags had the ball. The New York Jets recovered a fumble on a sack by Quinnen Williams.
Welcome back.
That impending series, which started deep in Jacksonville territory, wound up getting the Jets 3 points. That was the only 3 points the Jets mustered the entire game. Mark, I don't know if you want to go Zach Wilson here, if you want to go into Salah, but I'll let you take it away first here.
I was really actually looking forward to the game yesterday, thinking that this was going to be more like a 3-3 game, maybe, maybe even 7-3. The amount of work that the Jets defense does to keep the Jets in the game says a lot. I mean, New York has always been a defensive town, and the Jets and the Giants both have 2 very young defenses, and they're going to get better over the years, and they're going to become very dangerous, especially Gardner. My issue is a lot of people are saying you got to get rid of Wilson. You got to find a new quarterback. They are starting to look like the Cleveland Browns of old, and the amount of quarterbacks they brought in and the amount of quarterbacks they let go and a dumpster fire they are altogether. They're not giving any time really to develop. Look what happened with Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, now Zach Wilson. Jets fans want a quarterback, but they don't want a rookie quarterback. They want someone who's going to take them to the playoffs. And there's been a handful of quarterbacks who have done that on their first year. And it happens. There are quarterbacks who are good people. But in this case, Zach Wilson had nothing to work with offensively. They've lost that offense. And at this point, it's like, is it worth fighting to stay in it? Or are we going to just turn around and tank and just grab a higher draft spot?
Go, Bill.
Yeah, I just, it's just with, after watching last night, it comes to think of it. Is Zach Wilson the guy? Is Zach Wilson the guy for the New York Jets? Because guys, we have to admit, their quarterback situation is atrocious. Like, you've got this thing with, Zach Wilson, who literally can't throw his way out of a paper bag. You have Mike White, who's injured. They're not playing Flacco, and they had the guy who, his name escapes me.
Trevor,
who played last night. Like, is right now, if I'm Robert Saleh, I'm asking myself, is Zach the guy?
No.
And to prove it, from what we've seen, like, okay, last year he got injured, so I'm willing to give him a little bit of grace. But this year is Robert Saleh, if I'm Robert Saleh, is he the guy? Because Zach Wilson has just been shown not just his poor performance as a player, but just the immaturity he has. Like the whole thing what we saw a couple weeks ago that was after the New England game when he said, "Do you take responsibility?" or something like that, and he said no. Like this is someone who does not have the maturity to lead a team.
I think the worst thing that happened to the New York Jets this year was winning 7 games so far. Not because they didn't earn those wins, but because now everything is growing quicker than you thought it would. And left in the dust is a second-year quarterback who you decided to take number 2 overall, who has a syndrome. And I don't like using that word, but the syndrome he has happens to a lot of young quarterbacks. It's Mahomes syndrome. He wants to be Patrick Mahomes, where he's the pressure that gets to him. I got to escape the pocket and make this really crazy throw. That's what he wants to do. The problem is you're not Patrick Mahomes and you don't have Travis Kelce or a Tyreek Hill. Let Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes and you just be you. Now, can he be a guy somewhere? Absolutely. He can't be the guy in New York.
I want to ask you, with the Jets quarterback situation, do you think they're going to keep Zach Wilson the starter for next year, or keep Mike White, or maybe they're going to go to someone else? Like there's possibility that Jimmy G, who's going to be a free
That's
agent.
the guy. I'd go get Garoppolo.
Mm-hmm.
And
knows the system. Played for Saleh when he was in San Francisco. And let's be totally honest, like Jimmy G was playing really well before he got hurt this year.
Yes.
And he's been to the promised land. He's been to a Super Bowl. So I would go Jimmy G, and I'd have Jimmy G and Mike White as my 2 quarterbacks. The other thing the Jets never did for Zach Wilson is they brought in Joe Flacco to be their back quarterback. Joe Flacco is a statue. Remember when Mark Sanchez was the quarterback, his backup was Mark Brunell.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone knew Mark Brunell was never going to play in case something happened to Sanchez. They can go out and do something else. The Jets have found themselves in a case where if they benched Zach Wilson, Mike White couldn't play last night, they'd have to go to Streveler or Flacco. And in case of the benching, which wound up happening, they had to go to Streveler because they didn't want to watch Joe Flacco. So then what is the point of having Joe Flacco on your roster? Right. It's just an eaten roster space.
I just think it's truly catastrophic what has happened with the Jets. Mind you, like Mike said, the tragedy is that they won 7 games. But if you looked at them from the opening of the season, things were clicking offensively with Breece Hall in there and getting the guys involved. But once Breece Hall went down, that was it. It was like the offense lost its notoriety.
Also, if you look at some of these games they won, the Cleveland game they won because Cleveland completely choked and couldn't handle an onside kick. Pittsburgh isn't any good, and they were able to find a way to come back. Green Bay, they just beat the brakes off of every facet of the game. Denver, we know they couldn't score. Well, they can't score. And, they beat the Bears with Mike White. But this is an offense that's still searching for something. You're right, the Breece Hall thing, plays a huge role into this because that's what they want to do. But that can't be the only reason for Zach Wilson's struggles.
No, it's not. It's a collapse. When you take the fuel rod out of your team that is getting you hyped and getting you moving and get. Well, I know there is no iron team, but Brees Hall made that offense so much better. I look forward to his return next year because I really want to see what else this kid can do.
He runs with a breeze. Get it, Breeze with the breeze.
Yes, that's why you're the pod master.
All right. All right. So that's last night's game. Jags 7-8 are right behind the Titans in the AFC South. The Jets are also 7-8. The Jaguars will play the Texans next week. Ironically enough, the Texans' lone win so far this year, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jets will go to Seattle next week to play former Jet legend Geno Smith. Although I'm very curious about the DK Metcalf Sauce Gardner matchup.
That's when you take those two teams into account, that's really what it's going to be about. It's like Josh Norman on Dead Bryant all over again.
Yeah, so that's what comes for those two teams. They have 10 days off, so they get to enjoy the holiday. So on to tomorrow. We have a large slate of games. And then the NFL gave us 3 Christmas Day games. We'll go through those as well. So tomorrow, let's just start with the heavyweight battle. We got a 425 Fox. It's Eagles Cowboys. There is no Jalen Hurts for the Eagles this week. Gardner Minshew will start. So what changes does that make for the Eagles offense in your mind, Mark?
You know, nobody really wants to be in that mess as an Eagles-minded person. But in the case of this, you're taking Jalen Hurts, who's been MVP candidate, lights out player of the year this year. He goes down last week, I believe it was in the third quarter, on a tackle by Chicago and drilled his shoulder into the really cold ground. And we've seen that break collarbones of the likes of Aaron Rodgers, Tony Romo, stuff like that. And it's just unbelievable where we are in looking at this. I want to see more. I want to know what's going to happen. Philadelphia has the Minshew in. Now, Gardner, when he first started with Jacksonville, ding, was, pretty serviceable and was good. I think he got too big head, too diva-like, and lost a little bit. He's got a resurgence chance here with the Eagles. What does that mean for the Dallas Cowboys? It means if they don't shape up, forget it. Right now, the Dallas Cowboys are 2 games back. This is a prime game for Dallas to come in and win to put it back to 1 game. And if Jalen Hurts is really that much, if the shoulder is really that much of a problem, Philadelphia could be the team to give up the NFC East to my Cowboys. However, Dallas can only accomplish this by winning out. So there is no room for error.
Yeah, because the thing is, with tomorrow's game, which is going to be in Dallas, which could make it tough for the Eagles, I just want to say, with Jalen Hurts being out, it's you got to look at it this way. I was watching First Take this morning. Stephen A. Smith said, you still got A.J. Brown. You still got Miles Sanders. Jalen Hurts isn't the only person on that team. So I think this could still be a game where the Eagles could win this one. And Mark, no offense, if you if the Eagles beat you guys with Gardner Minshew, I'm not gonna lie, I might laugh a little bit.
You know, it would be a laughable situation. I don't disagree with you, Bill, especially the way the Dallas Cowboys have played over the last 2 games. And not mainly the offense, the defense has really let the Cowboys down. However, there's one thing I can say that you can't. We're playoff bound and you have to win out, and good luck, because the New York Giants aren't going to the playoffs.
Well,
this year.
we'll get there in a few minutes.
I know.
I think this is a great opportunity for Gardner Minshew because he can
I
go
think
out
so,
there
baby.
and show other teams, hey, I could still be a starter somewhere. So go out, ball on Christmas Eve. You have Devontae Smith, you have AJ Brown. I'm not 100% sure if Goddard's going to play.
It's GTD right now.
Yeah. So
I would think if it was a 1-game lead, it would be a no doubter. He would be in there, in possibly as a decoy, more or less.
but this is where I think last week's game comes back to haunt the Cowboys a little bit. Because if they keep that lead, you're right. It's 1 game or 2 games. I don't know. The lead shrinks by a game just based on that loss. But this is a game where the Cowboys stars have to play like stars.
Absolutely.
And that includes Dak Prescott. Now, Dak didn't play poorly last week. He played really well. Except for the pick 6 at the end, which was a great play by Jenkins. But Dak Prescott has to go out and say, you know what? I'm the guy. I'm supposed to be the best quarterback in the division. I have to go out and play like I'm the best quarterback in the division. That means Kellen Moore, you got to call a great game.
That has been one of the Cowboys' problems, and they've made changes, a lot. And the one position change, let's put it there, one coaching position they had not changed that they should have was Kellen Moore. Now, he's done an okay job calling plays. I'm not going to give him a good rating. Jason Garrett did better than Kellen Moore, in my opinion. Dallas will be looking for a new offensive coordinator come next year. I do not think Kellen Moore is going to catch on anywhere as an OC. Maybe a quarterback's coach at most.
The other part, Dan Quinn, that defense, they need to step up too.
The whole defense does.
Everyone. But here's my issue, because other teams have targeted, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, Kelvin Joseph.
Yes.
Because Trevon Diggs is great. We know that. It's the other side that has been giving the Cowboys a lot of issues. Now, that would be a non-factor if Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and company were getting to the quarterback.
Which we could see more of tomorrow, because I think Dan Quinn, as our good friend Frank Tarkenton said, it's the end of the season. You can't hold anything back. This game is the Cowboys' season right now to determine whether they're going to either rest their players coming down the stretch or really go and try to make a claim as the winners of the NFC East and get that bye.
By the way, though, if they become the 5 seed, which is the only seed I think they can get because the Giants can't catch them and whoever else can't.
It's the 5 seed. They've already clinched that.
They get the winner of the NFC South. So I'd rather have, I think I'd rather have that.
We all know that the week off tradition, the bye week, has ended certain teams who go out and party on a boat and smile. Ooh, I'm having a good time.
I know that was a jab at my team, Mark.
Yeah, was I making that too easy?
We got that tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night, we have Raiders, Steelers, NFL Network. Now, the game, both teams are technically still alive in the playoff race. for a wild card spot. I don't think either one gets there, but it's the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, and sadness struck Pittsburgh this week as Franco Harris passed away. I believe they were going to retire his jersey. That was the
Yes.
plan.
Yes.
And so, just a sad note that couldn't.
One of the greats.
Yes.
I mean, that play, you watch the highlights of that play, and people still rage on the debate whether it hit the ground or not. But, so you have the Steelers Raiders, the 50th anniversary of that. Great play. They'll retire Franco Harris's jersey. So heavy hearts in Pittsburgh. So it should be a fun game. Two teams who are still alive. All right. So back to the NFC, because we talked about the surging Jags before.
Mhm.
There's another jungle cat on the prowl in the NFC.
Panthers.
No,
Lions.
the Lion. Why would you? You know what? Just mute yourself for a minute. Yeah, there you go. It's Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions, who have won 6 of 7. And they're right on the outside of a playoff spot right now. And if Detroit wins, they got an opportunity to be in. They'll take on the Carolina Panthers, who still have a shot because they play in the NFC South, and the NFC South is completely putrid. But Mark, like, the Lions were the laughing stock, and they were 1-7, and they're the same old Lions. No, they're not.
No. The Lions have found a brand new resurgence, and Jared Goff has finally returned to form. Last year was just atrocious for him. He is looking like he had in Los Angeles. He has made not great. He's made good receivers this year with Amon St. Brown. You got the running game going very well. This is not the same old Lions of Barry Sanders that run the ball. Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift are a kind of a running back duo. I mean, I think DeAndre will be gone after this year, but Jamal Anderson has a problem, is that he doesn't have a reception yard on the year, and the guy fumbles way too much. Now, you want to chalk up the first 3? Yeah, you're a rookie, fine. After that, no. Go to watch the program. Make it walk around the training facility. Knock the ball out of his hands. Make it as serious as you can, because this Lions team has a good chance to make the playoffs. And you want to know what? Jared Goff has played in big games, and he knows what it's like to be under pressure, and he's proven it more and more.
And the Lions are only going to get better because of this. They own the Los Angeles Rams first-round pick, which right now would be in the top 5.
Right.
So you're already going to add to a roster that's already growing and playing really well. Aiden Hutchinson should be in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. I will argue with people that there should be a different category for defensive backs and pass rushers, but I'll digress on that for a second. But you're right, Goff's played well. Amon St. Brown has been a solid receiver the last 2 years. They just got Jameson Williams back. The offensive line is playing really well. Dan Campbell has something here. He's really done a good job with mixing it up in the pot, man, and stirring the soup. I didn't know if I wanted to go Campbell's soup or a
Eh.
car punt. I didn't know, but
I'm not just quickly. I'm not saying Brown in his second year, and this is with the Lions. 89 receptions, 974 yards, and 6 TDs. That's a lot better than a lot of wide receivers I know.
yeah,
So he is just blooming into that number one spot.
yeah. So there's
So-
that for Detroit.
So,
Yeah,
Mike,
Bill.
are the Lions gonna sleep tonight?
No, they're going to be on the prowl. Playing
This is why you
Carolina.
make the puns, not me.
Sam Darnold's actually played pretty well also since becoming the start up until last week where he wasn't that good. But Carolina's another team. I think they got to go find another guy.
Again, Carolina were trading Christian McCaffrey over to the San Francisco 49ers. They realized their weakness. They knew they were not going to get him to resign after his extension already. So what did they do? They got a lot of draft compensation for him. And that's, sometimes you have to let the big dog off the leash, let him go somewhere else. You collect bones for the new puppy. That's all.
And so we'll see what Carolina does. They are still in the thick of it in the NFC South, as are the Atlanta Falcons, who will play in Baltimore. No, Lamar Jackson is not back. It'll be Tyler Huntley again for a Ravens team that just can't stay healthy.
And this is the second year in a row in which we've seen these problems with Baltimore coming down the stretch.
Yeah, well, it comes into question what happens with Lamar in the offseason.
Well,
do they pay him? Do they franchise him? What's going to happen?
I think it's more likely he will be franchised. I don't think they're ready to hand him the keys to the clubhouse just yet because of his last 2 seasons being injury prone. So, that's how I see that.
So
I'm not going to disagree. I think there's a way they work out a long-term deal, but I think they'll open it up with a franchise tag and then they'll go from there. But this is a team in Baltimore. They win, they get some help. They're back in the playoffs like they are every year. Atlanta, Desmond Ridder is going to make his second career start. He struggled a bit last week, but first start nerves, that's the thing. I'm not sure if he'll play great this week, but he has a decent matchup. Ravens secondary hasn't been as good as people would have thought. And like I said, Atlanta's in the thick in the NFC South. So are the Saints. They're in Cleveland. They'll take on the Browns.
This is the saddest. The two South, AFC and NFC, they don't want to go to the playoffs. Let's just give it to another team that's deserving.
I mean, I wish the whole NFC South would say that no one deserves a playoff spot.
No, I agree.
I mean, but for Cleveland, Deshaun Watson's coming off his best game since coming back last week against Baltimore. You know what you're going to get from Nick Chubb. I think the Brown defense is going to play really well tomorrow. I think you could add the Saints into those teams that they're in the quarterback market next year.
Absolutely. I think good old Krabby Legs is done in New Orleans. Personally, I think that game, along with any game in the not NFC, sorry, I apologize, in the upper northeast of the United States, is in for a brutal awakening in those games. Not only you got wind problems, it's going to be under 10 degrees in most cities to start off the day.
Yes.
So all that water on the field is freezing overnight. They'll get it prepped and ready, but it's going to be hard.
And you just wonder how acclimated the Saints are. They play in a dome, and they play mostly, down southern tier, but so they're gonna have to figure out a way if they want to stay in the NFC South race. The last team in the NFC South is Tampa. They play Sunday. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we also got the Bills and the Bears in Chicago. I got to tell you, this is an underrated game because the Bears have actually played really well recently.
This is a prime trap game. And I know
Well,
I've
my
gotten
guy
a lot of
Admiral
feedback.
Akbar.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback that trap games don't exist. Yeah, okay.
They do.
Fields.
The Bears have played very well. Justin Fields has definitely proved why the Chicago Bears drafted him in top of the first round. He's put up great numbers on the ground. He kind of, it's hard to say he's like him or better. Justin Fields starting to remind me a lot of Michael Vick in his first few years in the league. And Justin Fields is a young kid, and he's going to be a very big split quarterback with rushing and throwing. And it's going to be nice for Chicago fans to have something to cheer for again.
Bill?
Yeah, I just want to say, this could be a trap game for the Bills, but coming off that awesome game last week against Miami, sorry, Rifkin. I know you're still hiding from Nate Moser, but
I spoke to him the other day. I know you're still hiding from. I'm not going to get into it. Just keep going.
But the thing is, it's maybe this is going to be a trap game for Buffalo, but I think Buffalo is ready because, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know, Mike, you will take pleasure in correcting me if I'm wrong. If the Bills win tomorrow, they win the AFC East.
If you were paying attention at the beginning of the broadcast, I said that.
Ding. But yeah, so tomorrow, I think Buffalo's going to come in, and I think they're going to beat Chicago tomorrow. That's just my humble opinion, but
it's a primetime trap game, and it's not going to be the Bears defense that's going to do the damage. It's going to have to be Josh Allen's worst day. I don't think it's really going to be a competition. I really think Buffalo's going to blow them out of the water, but you're home in Soldier Field in the coldest time of year, and the Bears are used to it, so are the Buffalo Bills, considering where they come from, and it's going to be a fun game.
I think if nothing else, Justin Fields has proven he can be a franchise guy. You just got to go get him some more weapons, and you go from there. So I think the Bills are going to win too. And Bill, you said, much to my chagrin, I actually thought it'd be worse than a field goal loss last week. So you live and die with it. So you live and learn with it. So the Bills can win the AFC East with a win or a Dolphin loss. We'll get to them in a little bit. Speaking of the AFC East, we had arguably the worst end. Let me rephrase that. The funniest ending to a football game took place last week in Vegas when Jacoby Myers, well, let's just say he should hire Jacoby and Jacoby for his law firm. When he threw, for those who didn't watch it, at the end of regulation, the Patriots ran the ball with Ramondre Stevenson, who lateraled it back to Myers, who went to throw it back to Mac Jones. I don't know what he thought Mac would do with it because Mac can't rethrow the ball.
Correct.
It got intercepted by Mac's long-lost cousin, Chandler Jones, also former Patriot legend. And Chandler Jones scored a touchdown with no time left, giving the Raiders a win.
He didn't just score a touchdown. He Marshawn Lynched Mac Jones through the turf, wiped his mouth and his body off, and then trotted into the end zone.
Yeah, he
I'm sorry.
basically took Mac Jones' soul.
Oh,
He became the Undertaker in that moment for those
That was-
wrestling fans.
that was just so good to watch and see.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go on, Mike.
So New England, they'll host Cincinnati, who just found out they're in the playoffs with the Jet loss last week. They are still playing for the AFC North, though. And they're coming off a 17-point comeback and beating the Bucks last week.
And Mike, since you talked about New England, I got to tell you a really quick funny story. My brother was actually in Boston last week, and he was watching the game at a bar with his girlfriend, and he said when that play happened, he said the bar got very quiet, and then a few seconds later, people were cursing up a storm.
That does not surprise me at all. But New England's still alive in the playoff race. They'll play arguably the hottest team in football, which are the Bengals.
Joe Burrow, definitely is starting to show like he was last year. Jamar Chase, Higgins, Boyd, all healthy. Mixon is healthy. That line is healthy. It should be a Buffalo AFC championship.
Well, there's one team who could stand in both their ways. That's the Kansas City Chiefs, who will play host to the Seattle Seahawks in what could be a very entertaining game. Geno and the boys are 7-7. They're still alive. Kansas City still fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Thoughts?
That's going to be a fun game tomorrow. And I think, you got Pat Mahomes with Travis Kelce. I think this is going to be a good game. Geno Smith with DK Metcalf. I think this is going to be a fun, just gunslinging show tomorrow. And I do think the Chiefs are going to squeak it out, though, because, yes, they've clinched the AFC West. But they still got to play. They're still playing for the number 1 seed in home field advantage. So I think they're going to be all out tomorrow. And I think it's going to be watching these two offenses are going to be great. And I hope KC wins, because if the Giants win, that's going to help them out a little bit.
This game tomorrow is not going to be won by Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to be won by the KC defense. Isaac Pacheco is going to have a monster game tomorrow.
Oh, he's going to fire.
I have him down for at least 100+ yards and 50+ receiving yards and 2 scores tomorrow. I think he is the different factor, along with Jared McKinnon, over the last few weeks, that are making it easier for Patrick Mahomes to pick up where Kelce is. Because when you look at it, there's no real deep threat on that team anymore. Yes, you got Juju and Kelce can get down the field. But with the loss of Tyreek Hill, you won't see Patrick Mahomes throwing 50, 60 yards down the field anymore. He's a skilled surgeon with how he passes. And that's what he's going to do tomorrow. It'll be sharp, short passes.
And it's why I think Mahomes is having his best season. I know there are years where he's thrown 40+ touchdowns, and we all love seeing the deep balls to Tyreek. But you mentioned it, Mark, like that's taken away from him. Now everything is not dink and dunk, but it's intermediate, it's moderate stuff. He doesn't need 80 yards every play. And I'm also shameful for defenses who don't defend Travis Kelce. That's the one guy on this offense you should take away, and you don't do it. But I think Mahomes is having his best year. And I think the Chiefs defense needs to ramp it up this week. It's
The
going to be
problem with
hard. Go ahead.
No. The problem with the Chiefs is if you will look at their defense over the last 4 years, it's been getting worse and worse. And that's why Patrick Mahomes had to work so hard and does continue to keep his team in the game. That defense, you're right, has to start to perform at a high level this weekend.
Yeah, especially in this AFC, because there are a number of teams I could see representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Casey's one of them. You know, along with Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore. The list goes on. So you need something that's going to make you stand out. Mahomes does it really well, but you need something besides that. So for Seattle, again, I think if you told a Seahawks fan before the year you're going to win at least 7 games, they'd sign up for that. Because you learned a lot about this Seattle Seahawks team. And again, they're going to pick near the top of the draft because they own the first round pick of the Denver Broncos because of the Broncos country let's ride guy who's had a terrible year.
Terrible is an underrated word.
All right. Dreadful, awful.
Dreadful. I like that. I like dreadful.
Atrocious.
I like dreadful.
Dreadful.
All right. So we also have Giants Vikings, as mentioned. Giants win with some help. They're in the playoffs. Vikings could still technically get the number 1 seed, but they would need Philly to fall off. And they're coming off that game last week, that 33-0 comeback over the Colts. And Mark, you texted me about Kirk Cousins, and my response to you after the game was the Kirk Cousins, you like that gif.
Look, I've come out many times on the network and I have said that Kirk Cousins is garbage. You're not going to change my mind. However, it doesn't mean I can't give credit where credit is due. The big problem with me is you take the first half of that game. What the hell happened? I mean, that they were down yet again, unfortunate to Matty Ice, and we'll give his record a shout out soon. What the hell changed? It's not like the spread was 20 points or something like that. It had nothing to do with anything. It's like they literally were body snatched. The whole Indianapolis Colts, offense and defense, were not the same. Something happened. And lo and behold, Matt Ryan lays on the back end of 2 of the worst comeback and defeat losses in the history of football. 1 in the playoffs and 1 in the regular season.
He's been iced.
He has been officially benched, yes.
And Nick Foles is going to play Monday night. We'll dive into that in a minute. I mean, I love what the Vikings are. I really do. I know the defense isn't great. They also had 2 defensive touchdowns staying away from last week, but this is a team that if they get in, well, they're in. This is a team that you're not going to want to see. Guess what? Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back in football.
Yes.
Adam, I've still got a feeling, is still productive. KJ, don't call me Ozzy Osbourne, has played a really solid number 3 receiver. They added TJ Hawkinson to play tight end. The offensive line's okay for the most part. So you know this team can score. The question is, can they get big plays on the other side? Zadarius Smith, Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith. These guys have to come in and play strong because the Vikings are good. They are very, very good. So that's an important game.
Yeah.
They're going to lose because you showed the shirt.
Hey, if we can put on the flip side to the Giants for a second, if that's okay with
Go.
right honorary gentleman right now. I think the Giants can put up a fight tomorrow. If you saw last week, after getting their what's annihilated by Philly 2 weeks ago, this is a team that said, you know what? We're still in this thing. And I think, I'm not going to get into this big debate whether Daniel Jones is the guy or not, because you've heard me talk about that 6,387 times on the podcast. Sound about right?
Just a nice random number there, Bill.
Yeah, I made it up. But I think the Giants, because when you got, like I said, you got Saquon, you got last week Kayvon Thibodeau on defense, who was an absolute beast. I think you
an
probably apply that
opportunity to
pressure
say
to
the
Kirk
star
Cousins.
would shine bright in prime time and you missed it. Shame.
But I think the Giants can, and we were talking about the clinching scenarios earlier, and here's the thing with the Giants. The Giants of the next three, according to 538, they just got to win one of the next three.
Well, like I said, if they win, and then two of those three of Washington, Detroit, Seattle, Washington, Detroit, Seattle loses, they're in.
Exactly.
The problem I have with this game in particular is when they step up in competition, they have not played well. Both Dallas games.
Exactly. Yes.
The Philly game. I know they beat Baltimore at home, but they're not going to surprise anyone anymore with 7 wins.
They tied the friggin' Commanders.
Ugh.
And then last week, to be realistic, I'm still not sure how Terry McLaurin wasn't set when the referee apparently told him he was. And that was pass interference in the end zone.
Oh, trust me, if I'm a Washington fan, I'd be furious watching that.
Just as a football fan, I'm furious
because
this league doesn't know what pass interference is, and the worst thing it ever did was make pass interference reviewable. Because now you're giving these guys who don't know the rule more power.
I could see that.
Which is why they need to rip up the rules and rewrite them. But that's a rant for another day.
Are you going to be on that committee, Mike?
You know what? I'll get a petition going so we can.
But yeah, I think tomorrow. Now, listen, before we go on to the next game, with this game, it depends on which Vikings team is going to show up. Is it going to be the first half team from last week, or is it going to be the second half team?
I think it's going to be the second half because the Giants have so many injuries in the secondary that Justin Jefferson's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that is unfortunately true.
So, all right, the other 2 games tomorrow, we have the Commanders against the 49ers. Brock Purdy gets another start. The Niners have already won the NFC West. The Commanders still in the thick of things in the NFC wildcard picture. I don't know if you guys saw on social media the video the Commanders made of Ron Rivera telling all the players who made the Pro Bowl.
I didn't see that.
I would suggest
it was a nice
go
little
watch
thing that
it.
they
It's
did.
great.
It's like a 6-minute video, something like that. It was really, really cool to watch because when you look at both,
and there's one guy in particular who they're all really happy for, Jeremy Reeves, who made for special teams. It's a great video. It's on the Commanders Twitter page, so check it out. The other one, I don't think we've talked about, Texans Titans. The Titans will be without Ryan Tannehill. He's done for the year, it looks like.
Yeah,
with an ankle.
His time is over. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he's done. They're going to be the team next year. I'm wondering about a couple of guys for them at quarterback next year because I don't think it'll be Malik Willis yet.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I got a couple of gut feelings. One of them might be wearing 12 in Tampa right now.
That's interesting.
The other one might be wearing 12 in Green Bay.
That's even more interesting.
I mean, he was linked to them this summer, so be interested to see what the Titans do because draft Malik Willis, you're gonna think they're onto something with him. So you need a bridge guy for at least a year or two.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the Texans, you've clinched the number 1 overall pick. So your decision is Bryce Young, Will Anderson, CJ Stroud.
Young.
Well, we got a long time before the draft. So then Christmas
really,
Day,
when
we
you
have
think
3
about it.
games. Kick it off, Packers, Dolphins. 2 teams still in the thick of their respective wild card races. Here's the memo to Mike McDaniel. Run the football. The Packers give up almost 150 rushing yards a game. You can run the ball. Use Raheem Mostert, or as my dad calls him, Mozart, who had a great game against Buffalo last week. That will open up Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua. And then defense, make a play. Bradley Chubb, I'm talking to you. And also, for all of those people, myself included, who think the Packers have a shot 6-8 getting in, it's not going to happen. Too much needs to happen. So we have Packers, Dolphins. Then we have a battle of 2 of the biggest disappointments in the league, the Broncos and the Rams.
Oh,
Here's your Christmas gift, America. Watch these.
Merry Christmas, folks. Merry Christmas.
But you get to see Baker, who, again, gets another opportunity mark to show what he's got.
Yeah. Baker, when he left Cleveland to go to the East Coast of Carolina, just to go all the way out to the West Coast to play in LA, might have just solidified himself in position to take over as a current story going on with Matt Stafford. It looks like he is finally ready to hang up the spikes, and it's Baker Mayfield's job to lose now. You're going to get Cooper Kupp back next year. There's not much to play for in the Rams' eyes, but they could still be a tick and suck the life out of a few teams before it's over.
But Mark, what you said about Stafford, I heard him. He was on his wife's podcast this week, and he said that he's not going to retire.
Yeah, but does anybody see what happened with Brady and his wife when he didn't retire?
Well, let's not converse about the retirement until we know for sure what's going to happen.
That sounds fair.
So leave that decision up to them and see what happens there. So I'm not sure if Russ is playing for the Broncos. I'm not sure if they've announced that yet.
He's clear concussion protocol. He is cleared to go, but they have not named him back as a starter yet.
So we have that game. And then Sunday night, we have the Bucks and the Cardinals. The Cardinals season's all but done. The Bucks are still playing for the NFC South. Here's my memo.
Okay.
Fire Clifford, the big red bird. That's it. And listen, Todd Bowles isn't safe either. But
right.
Oh.
Well, can you blame Todd Bowles for being in the position he is? No, you had a team filled with aging, except for Chris Godwin, aging players, and especially the one behind center. And he has not played all year. Yes, the media attention for him is a problem because he's not in the starlight. He's in the Pluto light, and that's still a problem.
I just wish they'd hired Byron Leftwich to be the coach.
And I think that would have been a reasonable.
That's who I would have wanted to be the head coach. So, Bucks Cardinals Sunday night game, Monday night Charge. Go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted to say, why wasn't this Bucks Cardinals game flexed? I
don't think they can flex the Christmas games.
No,
because
too much advertising goes into it.
I think the Dallas Philly game would have been a better Sunday night game.
I think it comes into the holidays and what they do. I don't think because they can't flex any of the Thanksgiving games either.
Right.
Well, because here's why I think it would.
So I think these are predetermined. So,
okay. But can you just hear my argument?
No, I can see everyone's argument. Who wants to watch the Bucks and the Cardinals?
Because one, you have a game that's basically it's going to mean something in the grand scheme of things for the NFC South. If all you got to do is have a pulse to win.
Well, the other part is you have to cover that 4:25 game tomorrow, which is Eagles Cowboys.
And, Kyler Murray isn't even playing. But here's why I think Dallas Philly would have been the better Sunday night game. Because 4:25 Christmas Eve, I'm sure there are going to be people watching the game. But at this time, 4:30 Christmas Eve, a lot of people are going to be getting ready to do family things. And don't forget, around this time, for people who are religious, because Christmas is a religious holiday, 4 or 5 o'clock is when a lot of churches begin having their Christmas Eve services. So people might be in church, they might be doing stuff with their families. When if you have the game Sunday night, all the festivities are over. The Christmas
again, I think they're predetermined. And when the schedule came out, they didn't suggest. They know Kyler would be hurt. They didn't think the Cardinals would be this. They didn't think the Bucks would be what they are. So I think these are predetermined, and you can't move off of them. So the last game of the week is Monday night, Chargers Colts. Hopefully it's the last game the Colts play in prime time. And the Chargers are still playing for a playoff spot, but Nick Foles is starting for the Colts is all you need to know.
Right. And Matty Ice done. Foles is going to get a chance to show what he can do. I'm not sure how much he has left on that contract, but if there's nothing left, this is a showcase for him.
Oh, Colts, just go get a real quarterback in the offseason. You're back on that. And for the Chargers, you win and some help, you're in the playoffs. So
they need a lot of performance out of Austin Eckler this weekend.
That being said, the Colts are going to find a way to win this game.
You think?
I think the Chargers are going to win, but there's a gut part of me that tells me don't be surprised if the Colts find a way.
But also, mind you, the Colts are down Jonathan Taylor, which is a gigantic loss.
He's had another guy who had a brutal year.
Well, when you're the only one who can move your team's ball like Saquon Barkley has done for the Giants, it kind of showed their hand before they do anything.
I'll say this for Jeff Saturday. At least you're not coaching on Saturday this week.
I don't think he wants to be coaching on Sunday either, or Monday.
Or Tuesday.
Well, he's done after this year.
I agree.
So they'll need to be in the head coaching market along with the quarterback market. But that is your Week 16 slate of NFL games. This has been the Week 16 Sunday Sideline Report, part of the Sports Insanity Network. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Great blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Check out all the podcasts, Anchor, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the YouTube page where you find videos, vlogs, Sunday Sideline Report, Thursday Night Gridiron. Have a happy holiday and Merry Christmas. Stay safe, stay warm, and namaste.
Namaste.
Catch you on the flip side.
Take care. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa.
And a general happy, healthy New Year to everybody. This is going to be this is our final live show for this year. So we all look forward to seeing you all next year in 2023 with a new cast of characters